What is a word that you absolutely hate to pronounce? Because today I'm going to share with you 15 words that my students voted as the most hated words to pronounce. So I wonder if you are going to know what those words are. And at the end, I'm also going to share with you what word I used to hate to pronounce when I was studying and practicing English. So stay until the end. The first word is reporter. Reporter. And specifically, every word that has the R, flap T or D, and then R. Reporter, order, border, shorter. So let's start with the word reporter. You start with an R sound, R, and then a lax I, ri, ri. Then we have pour. That's an OR vowel sound. You drop your jaw, and then you lift the tongue up for the R. Rapport. Then, as you pronounce the R, you want to shoot your tongue forward for the flap T. Rapport, da, 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 da. That's the flap T. And then back to the R. Reporter, reporter, reporter. You have to really release all tension in your mouth to be able to pronounce this correctly. Reporter. And as a bonus, let's practice a few more similar words. Order, dur, dur, dur. Even though it's a D, it sounds exactly the same. Order, border, quarter. Yeah, it has the same ending. Order, starter, and harder. All right, the next word is entrepreneur. Entrepreneur. Here, it's easier to say it than to write it. I guarantee it's not that hard. It's just a long word, but it's not hard. So let's break it down. On, like turn it on. Tra, there is a schwa here. Tra, T-R, it actually sounds like a ch sound when you pronounce them together. Tra, entra. And then we have pra, that's easy, right? Entrepra. And then ner, ner, it's an N to the R. Ner, it's a stir sound. Entrepreneur, entrepreneur. The primary stress is on the last syllable. Now, some people might pronounce it as or, nor, or even newer, newer, newer. So it can either be entrepreneur, I think that's the easiest way to say it, entrepreneur, or entrepreneur. Whatever is easier for you, you choose it. I say entrepreneur. The next hated word is jewelry. Jewelry. And yes, it is hard. There's like an L and there's a W in the spelling, and it's like, do you even need to pronounce it? So let's break it down. The first part is jewel. Jewel. It's a j sound, then the oo as in food round your lips. Jew, and then it's a dark L. Jewel. Some people might even break it down into two parts. Jewel. Jewel with a schwa L, but the easiest way to say it is just jewel. And then re. Jewelry. Jewelry. It's a dark L, so the L sounds a little hollow. It sounds a little bit like a W. Jewelry. Jewelry. A new piece of jewelry. Jewelry. The next hated word is strength, and probably because of the ending. Let's break it down. S-T-R, st-er, st-er, stre, stre, stre. Some people might pronounce this cluster as stre, stre, but I recommend to stick to the S. Stre, stre, stre. And then it's an NG sound, streng, and then TH. Strength. NG sound, and then push the tongue out for the TH. Strength. Strength. You can also pronounce it as a K. Strength. Strength. And sometimes people would drop all the messy consonants in the back and just say strength, N and TH, strength. All of these are valid pronunciation. You would hear people pronouncing it this way, but if you want to be on the safe side, just go with streng, NG, and then a TH. Strength. And as a bonus, let's add in length, length, same thing. The next word is powerful. The P and the W and the L and the R. powerful. You start with pa, and then it's a WR, were, and then full, dark L. Powerful. She's so powerful. The next hated word is literature. Literature. You have two ways to pronounce this word. Li-ra with a flap T, ra, another reduced syllable, and chur with a ch sound. Literature. Literature. But you can also say lit-ra-ture. So here we don't have the flap T because we drop one syllable. Lit-ra-ture. So either literature or literature. The next hated word is anesthesia. A lot of tricky sounds here. Anesthesia. Anesthesia is a medical process that induces a temporary loss of pain or feeling or consciousness. Anesthesia. So you start with a, then nus, then th, the, and then it's a j sound. J. Anesthesia, primary stress, j. Anesthesia. You got this. The next hated word is comfortable. Comfortable. It is very uncomfortable to pronounce the word comfortable. There are two different pronunciations here. Either comfortable, and the T is flapped in American English. So comfortable, comfortable. Or an easier way to say it is comfortable, 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 comfortable. The next hated word is theory, probably because of the TH. The, stick the tongue out. The, and then we have a schwa sound. Thea. And when you transition from one vowel to another, especially if the first vowel is a front high vowel, like the E, the, what happens is that you get an intrusive sound between those sounds. Listen, thea, it's a y sound. Thea, theory. Theory. Stick the tongue out, but even if you pronounce it as theory, probably everyone would understand you. So don't worry about it. The next hated word is winery. Winery. This is exceptionally challenging for people who struggle with pronouncing the W and may replace it with a V sound. So for the W, round your lips, make sure there is no contact between the lips. Wa, wine. So we do have the word wine in it. Wine, re. So there's a schwa in the middle. Winery. Winery. We visited a fantastic winery. I just can't remember much from the visit. Winery. The next hated word is turtle. Turtle. You start with a T sound, then it's the as in stir, tur, and then a flap TL, which is a tricky transition, and I'm saying it objectively. Turtle. You flip the tongue and you pull it in for the dark L. Roll. Roll. You find it in bottle or Seattle and turtle. 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 The next hated word is actually a group of words, and that's words with THR at the beginning. For example, three, or throat, or through. So here you stick the tongue out for the TH and you pull it in for the R really quickly. And you want to hold the R a little bit. Thir. Round your lips. Thir. And then you move to the vowel right after the R. Three. Three. So to practice it, hold out the TH and hold out the R. It's going to help you. Three. Sometimes your tongue is going to want to touch the upper palate. Three. That's okay. It's actually pronounced like that sometimes, even in the US, but pull it in for the practice. Thir. Three. Throat. Through. And we also have 30. Here it's a little different, but practice with me. 30. All right, we have reached the final two most hated words. The first one is fifth. Fifth, because of the TH and the cluster at the end. So here, when you have a cluster, just be clear about what sound you're pronouncing. Here we have F and then the TH. So you stick the tongue out while pronouncing the F. Fifth. Fifth. Some people might even drop the F and pronounce it as fifth. Fifth. But for the sake of practice, practice the transition. Fifth. Fifth. And we also have sixth. Sixth. Here it's like a TTH. I wanted to add that because that was also a runner-up. Sixth. Sixth. You say the word six, then you stick the tongue out for a T, and then release it to a TH. Sixth. Sixth. And the last hated word is Saturday. Saturday. You start with the syllable sa, that's the primary stress. Then we have a flap T and a schwa. Satter, end it with an R. Satter, and then day. And that's an easy word. Saturday. Say it slowly, break it down syllable by syllable, and you will be fine. Saturday. Saturday. It's a Saturday. I love Saturdays. So now I'm going to tell you what is a word that I hated to pronounce when I was in acting school, and that word is choreography. Choreography. I always got stuck with pronouncing it correctly because of the stress. I used to say choreography, choreography, and every time I would say it, I would get stuck. So for choreography, the primary stress is right before the end, choreography. Now I feel pretty confident pronouncing it. Okay, what is your most hated word to pronounce? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you found this helpful and fun and you got to practice some words that you might even struggle with as well. And that's it. If you like this video, please consider sharing it and liking it. Subscribe to my channel to get a notification whenever I release a new episode. And you can also check out my website, hadarshemesh.com, where you'll find a ton of pronunciation lessons, mindset lessons, fluency strategies, and so much more, all absolutely free. So again, check out hadarshemesh.com. That's hadarshemesh.com. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of the day, and I will see you next week in the next video.